Hey everyone, Carl here with Literate Lessons, and today we're going to be focusing on Sandy Shocks. Sandy Shocks recently took the first, second, and third place spot at a fairly large event. If you are unaware of who Beanie is, they do a lot of fun community stuff and take pictures and things like that. And they hosted what they call Whooper Wednesday. And Sandy Shocks was in all three teams in the top 8 here. I believe all three of them are up near the top. Yeah, every single one of them is first, second, and third. The next one, I think, comes in somewhere in the top 32. There's another one that's 25th. That's a Paris Traps team that's similar to the one in the second. There's another one at 27th. So as you can see, Sandy Shocks kind of came out of nowhere and started doing really well in these events. What we're going to do today is kind of talk about what Sandy Shocks does overall and look at some of these teams and kind of explore what Sandy Shocks is doing on these squads. First up, let's look at some of these sets. So I kind of did some calcs and kind of did some math and trying to figure things out here, trying to look at what these sets could possibly be doing in the context of their items and their move sets and things like that, and kind of came up with three, I would say, fairly unique sets. The first set here is the Life Orb Expert Belt, kind of what you would expect Sandy Shocks to be doing. It's going to be looking to just deal massive damage and use its fairly good bulk and decent speed to push damage out and really hurt some people. This set here, we have optimal Life Orb HP at 169, so we won't be taking extra damage from our Life Orb. We have max special attack, and we have enough speed that alongside a Tailwind setter, we can outspeed Booster Energy Iron Bundle, which, notably enough, is a very big check into this Pokemon because we are weak to both water and ice. And being able to Terra Grass can mean that we absorb the water type attack, which is usually more common from them, since they do tend to Terra Water instead of Terra Ice. But we do have to keep an eye out for those freeze dries, for those ice beams, But you'll know that going into the game for open team sheet, kind of what you have to look out for. Grass here is probably the best typing you could do for Sandy Shocks in terms of like sheer damage, mainly because you do have access to Terra Blast as a way to hit opposing ground types. That could be a problem for you. For at least super effective damage, this also hits water types, which you could already hit water types with Thunderbolt, but it kind of just like is a win-win situation for you. It gives you a different option in case it's Gastrodon or something like that. This next set's actually really cool. It's a Assault Vest set, which one of the teams I was looking through when I was looking through the results there had Assault Vest on it. I believe it was even Terra Steel, but it wasn't playing Flash Cannon. I believe they were playing some other special move in that slot. Maybe Terra Blast. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. We'll look at it here in a little bit. But what they were doing is kind of just like, here's Volt Switch, here's Discharge, here's Earth Power. I've got good stab damage that's going to spread out across the board. But I could also Terra Steel to avoid all my weaknesses that I normally have. And yes, I'll gain new weaknesses, but I also gain Stab Flash Cannon, which is really, really good coverage for a lot of the Flutter mains and things like that. This set is also very, very bulky. Max HP, 20 special defense. You could honestly go for optimal, and I would say do this, go to 110, and then 4 and 4, and that might be a little bit more optimal HP wise. Going over, you would come down to doing calcs and things like that. But we still have enough special attack with Modest to OHKO pretty much anything like that takes a super effective hit from us, outside of Assault Vest things. But the idea of this set is to soak up damage from special attackers and deal just as much damage back, if not more. The last set we're going to talk about took a hot minute to figure out. I was kind of looking around, seeing these Focus Sash sets, seeing these Prayer Song sets, trying to figure out what in the world Sandy Shocks would be doing on these types of teams. And it kind of clicked when I saw that Gravity was one of the moves that Sandy Shocks was using. And this set kind of takes full advantage of that. We do have Earth Power and we do have Volt Switch to kind of play along in the Perish Trap style game. But we also are carrying Protect and Gravity, Gravity being very, very important next to like Screamtail or Gothitelle, being able to 100% guarantee hit Hypnosis and essentially locking your opponent out of the game. This is very, very cool because you kind of get this Gravity pivot Pokemon instead of what we're used to seeing Gravity Pokemon do. Kind of just be on the battlefield and not really do a whole lot outside of like specifically Clefairy. This is very much Clefairy style vibes. We're Terra Dark here. I believe the reason you pick Terra Dark here is maybe just so you have an immunity for like a resistance for Ghost for your other Pokemon, while also just you don't have to worry about any of the weaknesses that normally Electric and Ground would have to worry about, and it can make it harder to deal with most of the time. EVs for this set is max HP, max speed, just trying to be fast, because you do want to be able to pivot out if you need to, or you want to be able to get your gravity off first if you need to. Notably, at base 101 speed, you'll outspeed all base 100s, which is actually a very good thing because base 100 is usually a good baseline for most people when doing speed calcs. The rest here kind of just goes into defense, special attack, and speed, special defense, kind of just 4-4-4, just kind of rounding out some of our numbers there. Now let's actually look at these three teams here that took first, second, and third, and kind of look over what Sandy Shocks does on these squads. This is Costa K's team. Pretty much kind of standard stuff outside of the Sandy Shocks. We've seen a lot of Garonicle, we've seen Mimikyu before, Loaded Dice Excalibur, Focus Sash Meowscarada. The Volcarona's pretty standard for Volcarona when it comes to that. And Sandy Shocks is kind of just like this extra coverage Pokemon, this very strong special attacker, because that's one of the things we don't have really on this team. Yes, Volcarona can do special attack, special damage with Overheat, but we also just have Struggle Bug as our other damaging move there, and Overheat lowers your special attack. So Sandy Shocks here is just like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to hit you with this move, and you're going to probably be sad about it because it's going to be at least neutral or super effective. One of the cool things here is we are booster energy. I'm not sure what we are boosting. If we remember the stats here, we saw special attack was 121, the speed was base 101. So it's likely one of those two. I believe with your speed boosting nature, you can get the plus speed for booster energy. So if that is something to look into, probably get away with that, which that would be a 1.5 times boost, which would put you much faster than a lot of Pokemon on the game. This next team is very, very cool because it does a lot of very unique things with its Perish Trap style stuff with Gothitelle and Screamtail, but it catches people off guard with the very offensive Sandy Shocks. So this team has Sandy Shocks, Iron Bundle, and King Gambit as big damage threats, while also having Amoonguss, Gothitelle, Screamtail as kind of more supporty stall tactics. And it's really, really cool. You also seen Sandy Shocks, like I mentioned earlier, play like Gravity alongside these teams, but without the Gravity on the squad, you see that Gothitelle and Screamtail neither have access to Hypnosis right now. So that's kind of the trade-off, is if you're not going to play the Gravity Hypnosis, you're probably not going to want to do that as much. And instead, we are playing that Amoonguss. Again, Sandy Shocks here is the big, giant special attacker. We have Life Orb, and we're Terra Grass. We have Thunderbolt, Earth Power, and Volt Switch this time instead of Terra Blast. So we're using Grass as more of a defensive Terra than an offensive one. In the case of that, there are also other Terra types you can do. Notably, things like just Water in general is a good Terra type there if you're looking for a good defensive type instead of Grass, because Water will be resisting Water. You won't have to worry about a lot of the electric coverage because you are naturally a ground type, so they're not going to be bringing that a lot of the time. The only thing you'd have to worry about is opposing Grass, but I think that's kind of just like the wish-wash back and forth, is you're either going to be weak to the Iron Bundle Ice attack or you're going to be weak to the Iron Bundle Water attack, and you just make the choice there. This one is doing that Life Orb Expert Belt thing, except we have Terra Dark with Terra Blast on here this time instead of Terra Grass. We also have Sizor and Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, which is a very strong offensive core. No access to Tailwind, unfortunately, which means that our speed control is probably non-existent. We're kind of just playing a bulkier game, I would see, and Sandy Shocks can do that. You do have decent bulk on Sandy Shocks, so if you go no speed and a little bit bulkier, kind of get away with that stuff. Going through the teams, trying to find some other cool examples here, I found this one. This one is a great example of the Gravity Sandy Shocks. You're playing Gravity, Protect, Earth Power, and Thunder in this case, but you're also playing alongside, you have Hypnosis, Gravity Bronzong. So you have multiple ways to make sure your gravity goes up when you need it, and you also are playing Sing Screamtail to really put home that you are not going to probably get a lot off this game. Notably, you also have Will-O-Wisp, which benefits from gravity as well because Will-O-Wisp is not 100% accurate. And so this kind of shows that just like there's a lot of power into these status-heavy teams using gravity, but overall can kind of be pushed out of the format depending on how and what you are playing. This last team here is playing, again, the Sandy Shocks. This is playing the Assault Vest variant that I saw earlier. They're not doing the flash cannon things. They are using Mirror Coat, which leads me to believe that they are a more bulky set looking to deal back damage using its high special attack and Mirror Coat. But also notably, this is acting as one of the steel types on this rain team that otherwise doesn't really have a good steel type outside of Era Pelipper in this situation. And so both of those Pokemon take benefit from there being rain up. In the case of Sandy Shocks here, you get to avoid the water weakness that you would normally have and go into Terra Steel, but without having to worry about having the steel type coverage because you also just have Discharge. Notably, to go alongside that, we have Terra Grass Iron Bundle, we have Moongus, both which resist electricity to go alongside Discharge. And we do have that Terra Steel Pelipper to kind of dodge that big weakness if we have to click Discharge next to it. Notably, you could also go Terra Ground in this case to do the same thing. But to each their own. Terra types are as plentiful as the day is long, and you could write whole theses on what a particular Terra type should be. And that wraps it up for Sandy Shocks. This Pokemon was very low on my list of viable Paradox Pokemon, mainly due to the fact that Electric Ground is not a very strong typing defensively. But Sandy Shocks looks to be making a push to be one of the early contenders on being good. Ground type coverage is very, very strong right now. A lot of Terra Steel and Terra Fire. Notably, we're also an electric type, so we do have coverage for Iron Bundle when we do Terra. And so it's kind of like this dual threat. Electric ground coverage is very, very strong, and Sandy Shocks has surprised me. It's doing very, very well right now. If you like what you see, make sure to do all that fun YouTube stuff for us. Like, comment, subscribe, leave questions and concerns down below. Make sure to come check out the Discord and all that great stuff. And we will see you all on Wednesday for another deep dive. Bye, everyone.